But we won't talk about that. It's too complicated for most of the people on here to drag themselves out of their mind-controlled stupor and look a little deeper. How many of you have even been down to Detroit in the past year? Oh wait, you caught a Red Wings game? Or got in and out real quick to go to Ford Field? Gosh, that must make you an expert on all matters related to the city. You'll see what I mean when they pull it, and it's not far off. This water shutoff in Detroit is just a test run. I don't care if you're a mortgage banker, doctor, lawyer, or you work at none of your business. You're still part of the 99%, which means you are not and never will be one of them. They can shut off the water whenever the heck they want, water, electricity, whatever, and use any excuse they please. And you won't be able to do a damn thing about it. Drink up, sheep. This is a test, and you're next. So anyway, there's been some really great stories that have come out in the last 2 weeks about the new high-tech surveillance that's going in all over the country. And this is while we're hearing from Dick Cheney how there's going to be another 9/11, but it's going to be way worse this time before the end of the decade. And Cheney would probably know. This is the man who was hiding in the bunker under the White House and told the jets that we didn't need to intercept the plane on the way to the Pentagon. In Chicago, and this appeared in RT, on June 23rd, new high-tech lampposts in Chicago will collect data on weather and people. The streets of Chicago, Illinois will soon host some state-of-the-art new technology, but privacy advocates have concerns about certain data collection tools coming to the Windy City. According to a report published on Monday by the Chicago Tribune, a system of data collection sensors will start being affixed to light poles and lampposts in the major Midwest hubs sometime next month, so that researchers and scientists there will have a new way to get their hands on some highly sought-after information. I bet facial recognition software, anyone? The Array of Things, that's what it's called, project being put together by the University of Chicago and Argonne National Laboratories Urban Center for Computation and Data will collect details about air quality, light intensity, sound volume, heat, precipitation, and wind, as well as lay the groundwork for a vast infrastructure that will ideally let this kind of data and even more be collected for ages to come using additional new sensors. The installation of each utility box will cost less than $500, and officials told the Tribune that they'll require less than $15 apiece for annual electricity costs. The technology inside the boxes that holds the sensors were developed with more than $1 million in funding from the likes of Cisco, Intel, and others, the Tribune noted. Last month, John Moore of technology website GCN wrote that all of this data will not only be collected to nodes throughout Chicago, but will also be sent to city computers so officials can scour it when they need to examine data trends as future projects are plotted out. If that sentence doesn't make your hair stand on end, I don't know what does. Our intention is to understand cities better, computer scientist and urban center director Charlie Catlett told the Tribune. Part of the goal is to make these things essentially a public utility and widely accepted. Some say that these unassuming sensors have stepped over the line, though, because in addition to weather details and other seemingly invasive data, the Array of Things nodes in the Windy City will also look for cell phone signals being emitted by the mobile devices in pockets of passerbys. In order to get a better grasp on population density within some parts of Chicago, the sensors being installed will also try to make contact with cell phones in order to get a rough number of how many devices and presumably how many people pass through a certain area at any given time. The architects of the project, there's that word architects, told the Tribune that they are going to great lengths to ensure that personally identifiable information isn't sucked up, and said so far that any cell phone signals won't be traceable back to the owner of the device that pings a lamppost sensor. Sure it won't be. You can find that article on RT, and let's see here. For those who still don't understand that their cell phone is actually a bugging device that you basically upgrade every time you upgrade your phone. Police have a couple new things up their sleeve too now, and they all have cute little names. This one is Stingray. Using a device called Stingray, police across America are able to intercept calls and texts from cell phones, often without a warrant. And we'll talk about this when we come back. You're listening to RadChick News.
All right, well, we talk a lot about predator drones here on RT, particularly ones that have the capacity to kill. But what about unmanned drones that can spout enough pepper spray and paintballs to deter protesters? That's exactly what's being marketed right now by a South African company called Desert Wolf. And it already has some loyal customers, one of them being an international mining company. The unnamed corporation has purchased 25 pepper spraying, paintball shooting, flying drones for the said purpose of riot control. The machine has been branded the Skunk for its relation, of course, to a skunk's spraying capacity. It has 8 electric motors with propellers that can lift and carry 4,000 pepper spray balls or other non-lethal ammunition. The device is equipped with 4 barrels firing up to 20 balls per second each, which could equate to 80 pepper spray balls per second. It's also fitted with strobe lights, blinding lasers, and onboard speakers to give verbal warnings to the crowds.
Having worked in the field of retinal medicine for over 20 years, the blinding lasers part really got my attention. That sounds like a really, really bad idea, and I hope some ophthalmologists step up to the plate on this and bring it to people's attention that you can cause permanent retinal damage from those kinds of lasers. So we have the Skunk and the Stingray and the array of things. Now back to the Stingray article. This is how the device works. Actually, no one really knows how it works. And no one knows exactly how many local, state, or federal law enforcement agencies are using that right now, how extensive the monitoring is, or even what information the device is capable of capturing, such as the contents of phone conversations and text messages and pictures and map locations and GPS data and so on and so forth. And there's been some news about this in the last few days that I'm sorry that I didn't pay more attention to, but anything that I see that, comes down as some kind of violation of our constitutional rights, I know the government is just going to ignore anyway. So I put very little weight into any of that kind of news. Back to the Stingray device, though, under normal operating procedures, when police suspect that an individual is engaged in criminal activity, which is everybody pretty much, they must show probable cause of such activity to a judge in order to obtain a search warrant. This would be the requirement for police to obtain authorization to tap into a suspect's landline phone. But, that's only if cases go to court. If there is some kind of official recommendation that comes down from our legislative branch about these devices that can hack into our phones, they can still use them. They just can't use it in a court if something goes to court, but they can gather all kinds of data, some of it being fake or formulated or trumped up. While the same constitutional requirements should obviously apply in order for police to be able to listen to cell phone calls, technology such as Stingray makes it easier for law enforcement to circumvent the law. Because the Harris Corporation is so adamant about protecting every detail of Stingray from public scrutiny, it does not want to share any information about the device, not even with the judges responsible for issuing warrants. We're getting to a point here where police can just kind of do whatever they want, going into people's backyards and shooting dogs. Apparently they don't use pepper spray or tasers anymore, if you've been following the story that happened in Salt Lake City a few days ago. When News 10 contacted law enforcement agencies in Northern California that had, according to public records and purchase orders, acquired a Stingray technology device, police officials typically were evasive. For example, following up on a criminal investigation division report that stated that the Oakland Police Department's targeted Enforcement Task Force made 21 electronic surveillance Stingray arrests in 2007, and on a purchase order that showed that Harris Corporation had a $13,000 maintenance contract with the police to maintain a Stingray device. News 10 asked the department about their use of it. Thank you again for your interest in the Oakland Police Department, was the reply that they got. We cordially decline to comment further regarding your story. News 10 received similar runarounds or denials from several other police agencies, including the San Francisco Police Department, which said it could not find its grant application for funds to purchase a Stingray, and the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, which said it had no records of ever purchasing one. When News 10 again contacted the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department to ask them to explain the discrepancy between their statements and that of the San Jose Police Department, Undersheriff James Lewis emailed the station saying, "While I am not familiar with what San Jose has said, my understanding is that the acquisition or use of this technology comes with a strict non-disclosure requirement. Therefore, it would be inappropriate for us to comment about any agency that may be using the technology." I mean, these guys, they just have loopholes everywhere. On the line with me right now is Jim Lee from Climate Viewer News. And Jim has been tracking and mapping and paying attention to these types of surveillance stories. We see this Stingray device is actually from 2007. And there's some newer ones, too, that I have that I'd love to get Jim's opinion on. Jim, are you there?
I am. How's it going?
Good. What do you think about all this latest news on the surveillance devices that are being used and the police not commenting on even how they work?
Does it surprise you?
No, but I just like to hear your opinion.
I would be honest, I was sitting there shocked when you said it. I was sitting there kind of shocked. So I'm not gonna play silly about it, but yeah, that's freakishly scary. It reminds me of the movie Tron. I mean, they want to have a grid. I guess the first step is to, have sensors everywhere.
And they're putting them in. Chicago's first. I'm surprised they're not putting them in Detroit, but maybe the UN will come here instead. And I'm just 20 miles north of Detroit, so I've got a front row seat to whatever happens down there. But I'd like to get your opinion on this other device. This is something that's just exclusive to the county that I live in. And this came out in the Pontiac Tribune a few weeks ago, but I haven't seen this story carried on any other major networks. Imagine, if you will, cruising down Woodward Avenue, all smiles and sunshine until you see it, that red, white, and blue flicker in your rearview mirror. The Oakland County Sheriff has abruptly emerged behind you. We've all felt that initial rush, the terror of being pulled over and treated like a child. Whether you're a sinner or a saint, those lights strike fear. And now they can do much more. Let's take this a step further. Sitting there shamed and awaiting punishment, would you be tolerant with the immediate confiscation and investigation of your private belongings, including cell phone data? Hailstorm, another cute name, is a new device obtained by the Oakland County Sheriff Department with monies from the U.S. Homeland Security grant, and so far there isn't any information available about what exactly it can and cannot do. There were no questions asked when Oakland County commissioners unanimously approved the use of this cell phone tracking device previously used by the U.S. military in Iraq. Under Sheriff Michael McCabe told the Detroit News that the Federal Homeland Security Act bars him from discussing the device. So we don't even know how this thing works. And from what I've heard and talking to other people, it seems to be some type of scanner that they can actually drive by your house, point this thing at your house and see where everybody in the house is at and what they're doing and anything that they're connected to, what they're doing on the computer, what's on their camera. If you're broadcasting, they can interrupt broadcasts. And, this is scary stuff. And they can't.
You want to just do the simple version of it. It's illegal search and seizure.